So many of you have heard about Love Inc. That's been in our community for over 30 years. It was started in 1991. This past year, our board took a faith step and not only decided to withdraw from the Love Inc. national movement to become more Marion focused and to save money. All the money that we were sending out to the national organization is now invested right back in Marion. That's over $3,000 a year. But we also went from part-time ministry to full-time ministry, and that need is super great in Marion. So, but I want to get into talking about this stuff. Do any of you guys know what this thing might be? Do you know what that is?
To put your cup on?
It could be something to put your cup on. Do you know what that is?
Something you could stick on your fridge?
Well, you could stick it on your fridge if it had something sticky on it. What is it?
Something that you can stick onto the floor?
On the floor, maybe. Maybe. You know what? The people at my church saw them. You know what they thought they were? They thought they were whoopee cushions. They're not whoopee cushions. These things are what I like to call a helper. These things are jar openers. It would be really cool to have a jar opener and a whoopee cushion all in one, wouldn't it? That would be pretty awesome. Okay, but these are jar openers. Did you guys get one? There's another one. Anybody else need some more over there? Oh, I got you right on the noggin. I think you guys need some. They do fly pretty well, too. There's more coming. They are kind of like Frisbees. There's some more coming. There's some coming. Whoa, look at that one. Got some air. All right. So I'll have these out at the back if anybody wants some of these fun things. But these are our helpers. Heads up. There's another one. All right. So these are jar openers. And the way I like to think of this as a helper, because when I was a little kid, my dad, my big, strong dad, would come into the house and we would be getting ready for supper and we had to open a jar of like spaghetti sauce or something. And my big, strong dad couldn't open the jar of spaghetti sauce. So sometimes he would reach in the jar and in the drawer and get one of these things, pop it on top of the jar, and then you can turn it. It gives you some extra strength so you can open that jar. So sometimes you guys can use these special grippers and it'll even make you super strong too, okay? But I give those to you because everybody needs a little help sometimes, right? Sometimes it's hard to ask for help. But at Aspire Ministries, we're helpers. We are in Marion County, and we help people. We help our churches, and we help our churches help other people. So today, I'm going to tell you a story about Grandpa. You guys think you can help me tell a story about Grandpa?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Whose grandpa is it?
He's just Grandpa. Somebody's Grandpa, right? An old grandpa. Okay. So we're going to tell a story today about Grandpa who comes to the church, and Grandpa needs some extra help. So he's going to come ask for help. So he goes to the church and he says, "You know what? I need some help with some stuff that I've got going on." And so the church says, "Okay, what's going on?" He goes, "I need some winter coats." He's got 5 winter coats that he needs. Why do you think Grandpa might need winter coats? Yeah.
So I can go play out in the snow?
Well, yeah.
So you won't be cold.
Yeah, you don't want to be cold when you're out in the snow. You need a coat, okay? Why would he need 5 of them? For his family, yeah. So here's the story of what happened. Grandpa's asking for winter coats. He now has to help take care of his grandkids. So the church goes out to the congregation and they say, "Hey guys, we need coats, we need this size, this size, this size, we need for boys, girls, all different ages." And the church comes together and they get Grandpa their coats and everybody is nice and warm and they can play outside, okay? When Aspire Ministries jumps into the picture, we say, "You know what? That's great. We're so happy that you can help Grandpa find coats for the grandkids. If you have them give us a phone call, we might be able to find out a little bit more about what's going on." So, Grandpa goes to the church and he asks for coats, right? So the same start of the story, but this time the church says, "Why don't you give a phone call to Aspire Ministries?" And so at Aspire Ministries, we have 2 people that work there on staff. I'm a person that goes out and talks to groups like you guys. The other person is this really cool lady named Katie. And Katie answers the phone and she talks to people and gets all kinds of information from them and tries to help them. But then we also have a lot of volunteers, and we need a lot of volunteers because there's so many calls that come into our office. So Grandpa calls, and he gets a hold of Aspire Ministries, and he talks to Katie. And Katie says, well, hi, thanks for calling Aspire Ministries. How can I help you? And so he starts telling a story. He says, I need coats for my grandkids. So, right, this starts out the same way as the last time. Needs coats for the grandkids. And Katie says, well, tell me more about this. How did you get to a point where you need coats for your grandkids? And we're able to ask those personal questions and kind of dig in a little bit to the story. And we start finding out that Grandpa's daughter made some bad choices in her life, and she had to go away for a while. And so because of that, Grandpa is now in charge of raising the grandkids. So we start finding out more of the story, okay? We start finding out that the kids might be from like 3 up to maybe 14 years old. Grandpa's now trying to figure out, how do I work with all this? They had to move to a new school district so that he could be able to take care of them. And with a new school district, you have to go to a new class, right? You have to make new friends.
Yep.
You might have to make take new classes. You might jump into some new sports or some different things as a kid. So Grandpa's finding out about all this stuff, and Grandpa hasn't had kids in his house for a long time. What else is hard about school? Making friends. What about homework? Can any of you guys do the math homework that they're giving out now? My background's actually elementary education, and I had to stop with my daughter at about 2nd or 3rd grade because it's not just simple math anymore. So Grandpa is finding himself with 5 kids in his home now, and he's trying to figure out how to take care of this. Grandpa, again, has not had kids in his house. So as we start talking out, we find out the kids don't have anywhere to sleep either. So they've been sleeping on the couch or on the floor or in the recliner, like anywhere these kids can sleep. So he needs some beds, right? And then we also find out that they did get into some other sports. Before Mom had to go away, she had them signed up for soccer and all the different things, and so they had to get the pads and the cleats and all the stuff. And so Grandpa's now in charge of that and trying to figure out how to get them there. Homework, Grandpa has no clue how to help his grandkids with the homework. It's so much, and for 5 of them. They're not all 5 in school, but pretty close. And then, as Miss Katie is talking to Grandpa, she also finds out Grandma died not too long ago. Grandpa has 5 kids that he's having to take care of all by himself. And he's having to learn to cook for himself, and he's having to learn to take care of the house by himself, and how to go to appointments and all the stuff. So much going on. And so what Aspire Ministries does is we jump in and we find people to come around Grandpa and to love on him. We're called to love our neighbors. So we help people love our neighbors and do it well. Okay, so now with that phone call, Aspire Ministries will go out and we'll say, you know what? We have a church, and it might be the first church that he talked to. We have a church that can help with winter coats. And so Grandpa gets connected with winter coats. And then we have a ministry. We have a couple of different ministries. We have a ministry that Mr. Chuck over here is part of that's a furniture ministry, and it's called Hauling Hope. And our furniture ministry is able to pick up donations of furniture, and we deliver it to people. We might have beds, couches, chairs, kitchen tables, all that fun stuff. So we might have some beds to help those kids out. There's also a community partner that we have that's Ashley the Furniture, the home store. They have a program that they give free beds away to kids, that we do referrals, we tell them why there's a need, and then they're able to supply beds, and it's like a whole all-in-one kit. So community partners, church partners. We find another church or a school that's able to kick in and help with homework help. Sometimes Grandpa doesn't really know what questions to even ask. There's so much going on. So we can say, well, have you checked with your new school? Sometimes there's after-school programs, or sometimes they have tutors. And so we can either help make those phone calls or give him the heads up on how to do that. Okay? The sports side of things. We can also find maybe another church to help with some of that stuff that he wasn't able to afford, or he doesn't know where to go to get the stuff. Or maybe a church has their own sports program, and that's where the kids can plug in as well. And then there's another thing that your church does here called Grief Share. And we could get Grandpa in to get around some people that have also lost a loved one. And Grandpa could also get some extra love and know how to work through all of this stuff that he's having to go through on his own. Okay? So, and then sometimes the thing that they don't ask about, or maybe it's the first thing they ask about, but Grandpa now has just a limited budget of money that he can work on. So he only has so much money that he can spend every week, and he has 5 kids now to take care of. So that's a lot of food for all of those kids, isn't it? So we might be able to find a church that has a food pantry, or we might be able to take them to a place. We actually have lists of meal sites and food pantries that our volunteers keep up to date all the time, and we can send that information out into the community. We can text it to people, we can mail it to them, but we can connect them almost every day of the week. There's a place where you can go and get food. Okay? So the big picture is Grandpa doesn't have to do this alone. Grandpa's able to call Aspire Ministries, and we're able to build a whole community of support around him. And it can be of churches, it can be of community organizations, it can be schools. All sorts of people are working together to help each other. So I want you to remember that when you get your little helper jar opener out at home, you remember that, okay? We are made to be helpers. And when we use things and the services that are there for us, it can help us be pretty strong when we all work together. Yeah.
Is that story true?
That is a true story. Yeah. And I just want to share like another story, because I think when we drive in Marion, a lot of times we drive around and the houses look pretty and the landscaping looks nice. We kind of forget that there's more that goes on inside the house. And so from our point, when we're sitting there answering the phones, you can hear a house when a person's talking to you and it's empty. It echoes. And we had a woman that called us, and she had a teenager, and she had a little toddler that wasn't walking yet. And she said, I just moved to town. She moved away from a domestic violence situation. She had just moved to town, and she said, I need some help. Well, what kind of help do you need? Well, I think I need some furniture. Great. What can we help you with? And there was just a blank. And so Katie was talking to her, and she goes, okay, tell me what you do have. And there was a pause. And she says, I have a pack and play. That's it. She had a pack and play in her home. She left her family before, not her family, but her spouse before, and came. So in Marion, there is a home that had just a pack and play in it. And so we were able to connect her with our furniture team, and they were able to connect them with a queen-size bed, and we found out that the family loves to read, and we got them bookshelves, and they're, within walking distance of the public library, and they can go get connected there, and just all kinds of stuff. And we don't stop there. We do follow-up calls to see how things are going and what the next steps are. We've had cases where we had a woman that we had been connecting with and talking with and helping her out, and she ended up calling Katie and was like all excited one day, and she's like, I gotta tell you, I just went in for a job interview and they offered me the job. And Katie's like all excited, well, that's great, and she goes, I haven't even called my dad yet. And so they're just happy with that relationship that they've made with us, that they can do that. But I want to open all of your eyes that Marion is a wonderful community. We have a lot of people that are great at helping one another. We can all be helpers, right? We can all love one another, help where we can. But when we chip in together and serve our community, that's where God really does a lot of good things with us, okay? All right, so don't forget Aspire Ministries. Thank you.